Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Samhita Academy panel discussion. I'm Kirtana from the science stream.
I'm Arnab from the commerce stream.
I'm Navya from the science stream.
I'm Sham from the science stream.
And I'm Sumangla from the commerce stream.
We're students of the 12th grade of the Samhita Academy. So today we'll be delving into the uncertainty that the COVID-19 situation has sown and the impact that it's having on us. Let's begin with the topic that's most relevant to us, education. This pandemic has undeniably changed the way we're now being educated. Video calls are replacing classrooms and presentations are replacing blackboards. So we'll open the discussion with Sumangla. What has been your experience with the changed education style?
Before I talk about my personal experience, we can all agree that this is a new experience for all of us, the teachers and the students. So I think we're all putting our best efforts to make sure that nothing is compromised when it's about delivering quality education. And another thing is that both the teachers and the students, we get to explore a lot of new platforms, which we probably wouldn't have a chance to explore if we were in the physical classroom. Say, we had the Active Inspire, which acted as a substitute for the whiteboard in English. Then we had Kahoot, and we had various other quizzing platforms, which made the process even more interesting. And coming to the negative side, I think we all miss the fact that we can't, physically sit together with our classmates and have a fun discussion about the topics. And obviously, sitting in front of the screen for long hours and then again continuing your daily study time, it kind of gets tiring both mentally and physically. But I think now it's been around 6 to 7 months. So I think we're all adapting to this new platform. Uh, Overall, I'd say that we're all trying our best to make sure that we get used to this and make the best out of it. But the experience of the actual classroom is still far from being achieved.
Thank you, Sumangla. Arnab, what are your views on this?
So my views on this are more or less quite similar to Sumangla's, because personally, for me, it is a bit of a challenge. So I feel that online classes are both a challenge as well as a really big boon to us. Because, like, for me, it's a really big challenge because of my glasses. So staying online for such a long time, staring at the screen for such a long time, it really starts giving me a headache because I have quite high power. But on the other hand, it really helps us because it gives education to people in many rural areas and areas where they probably couldn't have got education previously. And now, obviously, there's still the problem of connectivity, where connectivity might not be there everywhere, but that's a different issue. And right now, currently, I feel that it is a challenge for both students and teachers, because we're trying to adapt to this new system, because students are having to stay online for such a long time and it's challenging for them and their eyes. And for teachers, it's even more challenging because they have to not only be online during the class, but before the class in order to prepare for it, after the class in order to prepare for the next class, and also in order to make corrections and other stuff. So I feel also feel that this is really helpful and heartwarming because we're all working together and coming together to try and make sure that our education is not hampered, and because education is quite an important thing.
Thank you, Arnab. Navya, how about you?
I think my experience has also been quite similar to Arnab and Sumangda's. Like, this has been a very new experience. I wouldn't say hard, but I would say it was different initially for us. I think one of the things that I was apprehensive about was how we were going to interact in the online space, because, we have such interactive discussions in class, and how would that take place on an online platform? But the teachers have done absolutely everything they can. Like we said, there's no compromise on either side. The teachers have put in great efforts. We as students have adapted to this and we're making the best out of it. For me, one major disadvantage, I think, is the lack of the learning atmosphere that you have in a classroom. Like, when you're sitting with your friends and you all have this common motive of learning, it's just so much easier and more fun because you're in this sort of flow when you're there. But like when you're on an online space, I feel you can get easily distracted and disinterested. But then again, we have become more independent. We have learned to reach out to different resources, like they mentioned, various platforms. So overall, this is the demand of the situation, and we've adapted to it, and I think we've made the best out of it.
Thank you, Navya. I'm personally really enjoying these online classes. I'm overall pretty much a self learner. So for me, it's useful to learn by myself, and online is not hampering that learning. And I love using all new platforms like the way that the others mentioned. I think it's very interesting to see how different platforms help different people learn because everybody's learning style is different. On the other hand, it's been ages since I've done theater or played PE, so that I really, really miss those. I'll now hand it over to Sham, who will enlighten us a little bit on the overall impact the pandemic has had on education and share his views too.
Thank you, Kirtana. As Navya said, I think the initial situation was of total confusion, not because it's going to be hard, but it was due to the confusion of a new setup. And the adaptation has been really good, both from the education system's perspective and from the students. We, as well as the teachers, are doing really well to make the best of the situation. And coming to the certain cons of this situation, as already been mentioned, the connectivity issues, the increased screen time, and for me personally, the biggest con is not seeing my friends every day in school, and that classroom atmosphere which we are missing. On the other hand, we have the pros as well, which is reduced travel time, so we can do something more productive in that time, as well as exploring new platforms, as it's been said, which I think has improved learning in certain ways. For example, in physics, we use this app called GeoGebra, in which it helped explain waves, wave fronts really well. I think for 10th graders, 11th graders, and 12th graders, there's an additional disadvantage since we're preparing for the boards as well as other competitive exams, and many of us are trying to apply to abroad universities. There's an additional difficulty that's being posed due to this situation. However, as I've said before, the teachers and the whole education system have done a remarkable job in trying to make the situation best for us. And I think we should all appreciate the effort of everyone involved.
Thank you, Sham. Okay, so now I think we've talked enough about education and academics. Let's talk about some fun stuff. That is sports. I personally love going out to play every day, but now I rarely get to play anymore because of the constant lockdowns and fear that everybody's feeling. So, On, how has your playtime been affected?
So playtime for me, as the years went on, was mainly situated in school. Like we would play in the school playground with all our school friends, and that used to happen for a long time. So that was really fun. But since school shut down, that hasn't really been happening. So the next best thing that we've been having is we've been playing in campus. But since initially the cases weren't as much, we could play, but now I feel that the virus has started coming more close to home because where initially it used to just be one or two cases or cases that we just read in the paper, now it's probably your neighbor or somebody from your family or somebody else within your own colony. So it started to get a lot more scary. So now the number of people who come out to play and the number of people who can play together is much less. So the number of sports that we can play is also a lot more constricted. So yeah, there has been a massive change in the way we play and what we play. But I feel that this is just something we have to get used to, and we have to hope that things will get better and we can start playing much soon.
Thank you, Anand. Navya, how has your playtime been affected?
Like Orna mentioned, as we grew up, our playtime sort of reduced. After school, it was mostly concentrated in school because, we're so busy with our classes. Like, you'd come back from school and then go to tuition. It's pretty late by the time you're back. It's impractical to go out and play. So, for me as well, most of my playtime was concentrated in school. Those lunch breaks or those PE periods, or those periods we would have a deal with our teachers, like, let us go play now, we'll study later. So, those classroom activities that we had together, going down and playing as a class, there was just something exciting and refreshing about it. So, after a long hard day, at PE, you would know your day would end well. But now I feel like we're missing out on that fun and that excitement because playing with your apartment friends is also restricted, but it's just not the same. And this being our last year at school, it's a bit more disheartening, I think, than it would have if you were in a different grade.
Thank you, Navya. Speaking of playing, sports is another field that's definitely gone through some upheaval in this situation. Sham, well, you're sports captain for a reason. Would you like to tell us more about sports and the impact that COVID has had?
Yes, Kirtana. As you said, I'm an ardent sports follower, so I've been keeping up with the sports community throughout the lockdown. So initially, nearly all sports were stopped, starting off with the Olympics being postponed, as well as football leagues, cricket, IPL, which is very relevant for us Indians, and tennis, which is my favorite sport. So at the initial stages, there was a lot of uncertainty as to will sports even happen this year. But the sports community has come together, and we are indeed having sports competitions, which are, I think, great. Because not only are they showing how to be responsible when you're going out, but also lifting the spirits of the people by just showing that you can do something and not be totally afraid of the situation. So we started off, I think, with football. Football leagues came back, and after that we had cricket, closely followed by tennis and Formula One. And during these times, I think the responsibilities of these famous people, sports people, has risen. For example, in the lockdown, there were a couple of stray cases where COVID rules were not followed, due to which many famous sports people got COVID. And this was not apt, as their followers would follow their example and lead to, I don't know, it's not a great situation. But on the other hand, there have been other cases where many sports people have come together to show what to do in COVID. Many messages have been sent, and this is a brilliant thing. Uh, to conclude with, I'd say that sports will soon come back to its usual greatness, but at the same time, there should be certain rules kept in mind while doing so.
Navya, would you like to share your views on this?
I actually had a question for Sham. Sham, since you're a sports person yourself, what do you think these new rules that we've adapted to in this situation, are they going to impact the sport? Like, are they impacting the sport now, and are these rules here to stay?
Well, to answer your first question, they are indeed impacting the sport. Primarily, I'd say the fans. Fans are not allowed in the stadiums, and we all know that when you have someone cheering you on, you get more energy, more drive to win. And I think all sports people are feeling this, that they more, would have done better if they had the fans in the stadium, as well as the fans are missing seeing their favorite players, such as myself. I normally would have gone to at least one IPL match, and this time it's not even in our country. Now, coming to your second question regarding are these rules going to stay? Well, certain rules with regards to personal hygiene may stay, as they have seen during the situation that hygiene has risen in importance. But other rules, especially regarding the fans, I believe will go as soon as we get a vaccine.
Thank you, Sham. Sports and playing are one form of maintaining our health. Another comes in the form of diet and exercise. Our exercise and diets these days have been greatly altered. So, Mangla, would you like to tell us how this has affected you?
I'd say the impact COVID has had on my diet is a very positive one because we're not allowed to go out. So I think there's literally very minimal amount of junk that I'm consuming in my diet. So it's 24 bar 7 home food, which I personally feel is a good improvement because I eat a lot of junk food. And more than that, even if you're being allowed to go outside, you still have that fear because you're not sure if it's very hygienic, especially during these times. So I think my diet has been impacted in a very positive way as I'm eating completely healthy. And coming to exercise, I think in the few initial months of the lockdown, we were all a little scared to go outside, even for walks or cycling. But then, once there was more awareness about how this virus actually works and spreads, I think a lot of professionals have told us that, only when you're in a particular point and in contact with someone for like quite some amount of time, the virus has chances of being spread. So I think when you're constantly in movement, you're not that prone to catching the virus. So I think after that awareness, we're all slowly coming out, and I think now I'm going for short walks. So I think, yeah, there is some improvement from the initial few months.
Thank you, Sumangla. Sham, do you have something to add on this?
Yes, contrary to Sumangla's experience, mine has in fact been the complete opposite. So I generally rely on cardio fitness like going out running or playing tennis to get my fitness, and accordingly I would have eaten. But since the lockdown started, I stopped going out, so fitness there stopped. And after that, you're being so close to the kitchen with all your favorite goodies, cookies, chips, ice cream. I used to go eat every break from the online classes, and my normally I would have 3 meals a day and it changed to 5 meals. I couldn't fit in a shirt, and I gained a lot of weight. So you could say my health was impacted in a negative way. But since the lockdown progressed, I realized that it's important to realize uh, that your health is being affected due to staying at home. So then I think I started my fitness, getting back to my 3 meals only. And I think this is the case with many more, that at the initial stages, you didn't know what was happening. So you just stuffed yourself. But now you're getting the hang of it and you're understanding what to do in this situation.
Thank you, Sham. Orna, would you like to share your opinion on this?
Yeah, Kirtana. So my view is quite similar to Sham's. So I've been talking to a lot of my friends and my personal experience as well. It hasn't been as good as Sumangla's. So because in this situation, a lot of my friends and me, like there, we don't really know if we can trust the vendors from whom the food is coming. Like for my campus, for example, there is a vendor who comes with food and it's sanitized, but this has been a pretty recent development. There might be some communities and some apartments where that's not the case, so people don't really know if the vendors are bringing the food sanitized, if they themselves are sanitized. Now, the vendors are trying their best, but you never know. So over there, people, they find it easier to just open a packet and chomp down a few chips, like have a few cookies. Now, while this might reduce your chances of getting infected, it is really bad for your health. And furthermore, my health and fitness was majorly dependent on my playing. I used to play cricket, football, badminton. It was majorly based on my playing. And since lockdown started, the amount I've played has really reduced. So what I've heard recently is running, cycling, walking. That's good. That's good. You can do that. But the way the virus has constantly been mutating, we don't know what's next. But so far, it seems like isolating yourself and doing fitness on your own, which is exercising at home or maybe going for long jogs, that should be good enough for us.
Thank you, Arnav. I too have to confess that I too haven't had as ideal a situation as Sumangla. She spoke about eating less junk food since the lockdown started. I, on the other hand, have definitely been eating more junk food. So she spoke about not being able to go outside and buy it. So I've just started ordering all of my chips and biscuits in bulk. And it's impossible to resist when it's right over there and you have nothing else stopping you. Overall, though, slowly I'm trying to eat mostly only at meal times and as healthy as possible. In terms of fitness, at first we were all terrified to go out, but now slowly with masks and realizing which sports and what games are possible, I think we've all been able to start playing again. Arnab, would you like to throw some light on the impact the COVID situation has had on people's diets and exercise habits overall?
Yeah, so like I said just now, it has had a pretty negative effect on our diets and exercise habits. So I think I've already spoken quite a bit about it, so there's not much left to say. But not only have people started eating more junk, there are some examples that I have read in the paper, or I have read a few articles online, that people are starting to get into more self-destructive habits, and this is mainly because of the depression that they're facing by being cooped inside 24/7. Now, while being cooped inside is good for our health, we it reduces the chances of us getting the disease. But health is a combination of both our psychological and physical well-being. So, not being psychologically well while making sure that you don't get the disease, it's a catch-22. And and furthermore, people, like I said before, don't really trust all their vendors. So this is a challenge for the vendors as well, to make sure that people trust them. So but a lot of my friends and I recently, we have started jogging more, trying to eat more healthy, because we have understood that even if the vendors don't sanitize the vegetables and food, there's still a lot we can do ourselves to sanitize it. You can take the vegetables and you can put them in a bucket of soap water to wash it and let it rinse, so to keep it clean. And there is still a lot we can do to ensure that the food we get is healthy and safe to eat. So yeah, while there has obviously been a massive deterioration in the quality of food people have been eating and the amount people have been exercising, but I feel that the only place we can go now is up, and people are actually understanding how to be healthy and how to actually work during these trying times.
Thank you, Anand. When we used to go out all those times to restaurants and malls, it was mainly for the food, yes, but it was also for the company and to socialize. We as humans are predominantly social creatures, so this situation where we're stuck with some people and unable to visit other people is uncomfortable to say the least. So, Mangla, would you like to tell us how the COVID situation has affected your and our social lives?
Yes, Kina. About humans, we're all completely different from one another, and our reaction towards this pandemic has also been very different. Few of us taking it very lightly, and I won't get it, it's just there, it won't come to me. And few of us actually being really sensitive about not just our health, but also the health of the ones around you, helping the needy. And about social life for us as teenagers, having a very up and running, interesting social life is really important because we're all under constant stress and pressure to perform well. And a lot of people have great expectations from us. So we need that time out to, break out and refresh ourselves and have fun with the company that we enjoy. Your friend, be it your friends, family, anyone, but we need that time. But I think now the way we are socializing has been completely different. We're having conference calls with our friends, celebrating birthday parties through video calls. And when it comes to entertainment, also, we don't get to go and watch movies in the theater. We all miss the theater experience of watching a movie. Now it's just watching movies on your laptop screen in Amazon or Netflix, which is a great improvement, but you still miss the theatrical experience. Be it your stand up shows, you can't physically go and watch them. That is also being done online. So I think we are missing a lot when it comes to the experience. But I think recently I had heard this podcast where I'm pretty sure we all know him, the famous Rana Dagubati from Bahubali. So he was talking about how he got married in the pandemic, and that his guest list had only 30 people. So it was a shock because one, he's a celebrity, and two, it's an Indian wedding. It's a surprise that you're going to have less than 100 people in an Indian wedding. So and then later he went on to say that he came up with this virtual reality system. He used it send it to all his guests so that they don't miss the experience of actually being in the wedding. So I think people are coming out with new substitutes, so that they don't miss out on the actual experience. So when you're trying to become more creative and think different with what you could have done or what you could do in order to match the experience, we won't miss out on a lot. And even the government's opening up the restaurants and malls so that we don't miss the fun we used to have, but within the restrictions. So I think overall, you can go out and have fun, but as citizens, if you're responsible for your actions and if you're aware of what you're doing and how it impacts the society, I think our social life won't be that hampered. It'll be fine.
Thank you, Sumangla. Sham, how has it affected your social life?
Well, to state, I have been out on multiple occasions after the lockdown has been eased due to examinations, and I've seen a mixed, uh, I've had mixed observations. So, firstly, myself, I have a very, very behavior. So, I'm seeing if the person near me is wearing a mask, if the person 100 feet in front of me is wearing a mask, and if there's someone too close to me. So, I think that has changed a bit due to the fear that's come with this. Pandemic. On the other hand, I'm seeing a lot of careless attitude from others. For example, when I taken an exam, I saw multiple of students gathering together and removing their masks to talk just because they're seeing their friends after a long time, which I think in this situation is irresponsible. Similarly, I've seen multiple people who feel that their hand, chin, and head deserves a mask more than their face, and I think that should not be the case right now. People should act more responsibly, especially in a social situation.
Thank you, Sham. I've noticed these days malls and restaurants seeming emptier than usual. Before, it was impossible to find parking, or we had to pay those unfairly expensive mall parking prices. Now there seem to be more empty spots than full ones. This huge drop in customers must definitely have impacted their overall business and even the country's economy. So, Mangla, just how greatly has the economy been impacted?
Before I share about how it has affected the Indian economy, I think personally, as an economics student, I found it really interesting when I was going through the facts and the numbers and what's happening to the economy. Because there are two things. One, when you go through the book and when the teacher's teaching you, saying this is how it works, and you're like, okay, nice. And then one, when you actually experience it, and you're like, okay, this does happen and this is how it actually works. So when you get the experience of actually seeing it happen and seeing it work, it's pretty interesting. So coming to the numbers, the employment has obviously gone down by a major number because uh, India is more of a labor-intensive working environment. So because we can't hire most of the people, I think the rural employment has been affected more because they're more agricultural based, and the GDP has been contracted by a massive amount of 23.9%. But keeping the negatives aside, I think when you come to the positive, the government has come up with various economic packages to help the weaker sections, the ones who are out of jobs, so that they can come to a minimum standard of living. And the government has also made sure that they give more responsibility to the IT sector so that they can create employment opportunities. Since most of it is based on work from home, so that concept will really boost our employment opportunities. And another thing is the small businesses were introduced to online platforms. Usually we don't see any of the small businesses or the rural businesses having sites on any social media platform or your Wikipedia or anywhere, because they didn't have that exposure, neither did they have the facility to go and start a website. But I think now it has pushed them to the online space, which is a good thing, because now their reach to the audience is much greater, and now we won't think twice before buying any locally produced product. Now that it's put in a large platform, we won't think about, like, will this be of good quality, or will I get a refund if it's not fine. And I think another company, a group of company that has greatly profited, I'd say, is the food aggregators like your Swiggy, Zomato, because their entire aim is based on providing doorstep delivery. So in these times when you don't have to go out, I think they have been having a great advantage. So I think overall, I'd say there are signs of recovery, but then they're very uneven. So I think if we still cooperate more with the government, I think our economy could be brought back to the original state or even higher than where we were.
Thank you, Sumangla. Arnab, what are your views on this?
So I had more of a question than views on it. So, Sumangla, I know you're probably not the best person to answer the question, but seeing as you've really done a lot of research on it, it just seems seemed like an interesting thing that I wanted to know about. So what do you think the economics that we have studied so far, how valid do you think they would that would be in today's economy? And do you think the economic policies would change? Like, I understand that that you probably aren't like the expert to ask about this, but based on whatever research you've done, I just want to know your view.
Okay, so your question is that what we learn in class, is
Yeah,
it valid in this situation?
yes.
I think, yeah, I mean, any subject, when you take the base, when you take the theory base, it's obviously applicable anywhere. But when it comes to the policies, like you said, it will change and it's still changing. Like many of the interest rates, when it comes to taking loans, and many of the uh, uh, policies which have been given out before have now changed to a great extent because we're not in the same situation before. Be it the jobs we have or our lifestyle, everything has been impacted. So I think the base of what we learned will remain the same, but the policies and the way we apply the concept will differ.
Thank you, Sumangla. So if we say that, so I don't want to lie and say that I only eat outside food from restaurants because I'm sure we all eat street food too. So some of us, I'm sure, love eating all sorts of street food, from flavorful pani puris to steaming momos. Those street vendors are surely quite impacted by this virus. Navya, would you like to give us your views on this?
Like you said, Kirtana, not gonna lie, I do love street food too. And even at that time, we ate it knowing that it was not made in the best of hygienic conditions. After this pandemic hit us, I think, including me, there was nobody ready to go and eat street food because we knew that it wasn't made in the best conditions. And risking your health at that time was just something we were not ready to do. So the street vendors were hit. Like Sumangla said, a lot of online businesses were able to expand their platform, and smaller businesses were able to come online. Street vendors don't have that kind of option. You know, they can't get there. They don't have the means to do it, first of all, and it won't really be profitable for them either. So they had been, I think, hit really hard with this pandemic. But since the world is getting up on its feet, like if you do go outside, you can still see some people eating at the street vendors. And I think it's a good chance for them to make their conditions more hygienic so that they can, assure their customers that whatever they're eating is healthy. So it's a good time for change, I guess.
Thank you, Navya. Sham, do you have something to add?
Yes, I want to share a article I read recently. It was regarding dhaba, which is called Baba Ka Dhaba. So what happened was a journalist went and made a video of an old couple who ran this dhaba who was struggling financially during this COVID period. And during this time, they had worked, as Navya said, to make their setup more hygienic, and their food was really tasty. And this video got spread around social media and was even endorsed by different celebrities, including Ravichandran Ashwin, a famous cricketer. And after this, it was great to see that the Delhi community come together to help support this dhaba. And since then, there have been multiple more videos which have been shared to help this community. And I think it's a great sign in these times.
Thank you, Sham. So far, we've spoken about how this pandemic has affected us and some people around us, but I'm sure we can agree that it's had the greatest impact on medical professionals and patients. Ornab, how do you think this situation has been for them?
It really has been quite a challenge for them. So I was recently talking to my mother's uncle. He's a doctor. So he was telling me how difficult the situation is for them. they have to they when they go to the hospital, they have to wear the face mask, the shield, the PPE suit for as long as they're in the hospital. They can't take phone calls from their family, they can't take phone calls at all. And moreover, there are quite a few hospitals in which once the doctor goes to the hospital, just in order for safety, they go to a guest house to stay in the guest house for another 15 days, which is essentially their shift. They'll be going from the guest house to the hospital for the next 15 days, and then they'll be quarantined, and then they can go home. And then there are a lot of places in which, just for safety, the doctors don't even communicate with their family. They're not even in touch with their family, even though they stay in the same house, because they come home, but they have their dinner or their lunch separately. Then they go and sleep on separate beds, and it's really painful for them because this is their family. And on top of that, these are the people who are fighting the diseases on the front lines, and they are constantly in contact with the disease or with people who have the disease, and they are extremely susceptible to it. And there are a lot of instances where people are not really supporting them because they're scared of them. They feel that that the doctors have constantly been in contact with people who have the disease. What if they spread it to me? So this is really alarming and sad. And moreover, not the irresponsibility of many people is really making the situation even worse for the doctors, because the irresponsibility of people is helping spread the disease a lot faster. I've had to go out of my campus a couple of times for a few reasons, and I have seen that there have been a lot of people who've been wearing their mask on their chin, wearing the mask as a hairband. They have been just taking it off and walking, hanging it from one ear. It's almost as if the mask has no importance. So this it really irritates me, and it's really sad for the doctors because they can't say anything. And moreover, have you seen that video? The one in which the doctor is dancing to the Hrithik Roshan song, the one that went viral, the Assamese doctor. Yes. So in that really shows us that the doctors are going over and above what they need to. The doctor is not only taking care. The doctors are not only taking care of our physical health; they're also taking care of our psychological health in such stressful, sad times. So I really feel that we should respect doctors, give them the support they need, and yeah, because they are the warriors fighting this disease on the front lines.
Thank you, Anand. One of my relatives had COVID like some time back, and thank goodness they've been cured. But the disappointing situation is that overall in society, they're somewhat being ostracized because people are terrified that they might still have it. And that's quite disappointing. And I think we should all try and be a little sensitive, and as a community, come together and support those who've had it, have it, or help fighting it, like Anna mentioned. So we're stuck at home almost all of the time and have to constantly keep hearing all this news about the virus. Most of it, unfortunately, is negative. This situation is challenging, to say the least, and can't possibly be quite that good for our mental health. So, Navya, how are you dealing with this, and what are your suggestions for others to take care of themselves?
Yes, Keetana, thank you for bringing this up. Like Arnab was saying, not only our physical health, but also our mental health has been highly impacted during this time. I think for our grade 12 students who are at this crucial point in life now where we're building a future and all of a sudden there's just this uncertainty of the future that we're hit with, with this pandemic. And we're not sure, are we going to have our exams, are they going to be postponed, do we have to go in the physical space for our practicals? There's just so many questions, and everyone around us is trying to make us feel okay about it. Like our teachers are telling us, what, don't worry about your exams right now, just do your best. Our parents are telling us the same thing, but somewhere you're obviously bound to stress about it. You're trying to think of all the possible situations and you're trying to reach for the best possible outcomes for you, and obviously extra work goes into that, and it gets so stressful because you're like grabbing at everything that's coming your way and you're just getting so anxious. So I think for me, and I think it's all of us, that we're just getting extremely stressed at this time. and our workload has increased. I think staying at home, I personally feel productivity has also decreased. I think initially there was like a major slack in productivity because you're just in this really comfortable environment, and your distractions galore all around you. Like we were talking about the food temptations, that is also a distraction. And you're like on the computer the whole time. You're like one tab away from seeing that YouTube video or scrolling through your Instagram. And it's not just social media. Even if your sibling walks into the room, you start talking to them and you realize an hour later you're playing cards with them. Like, I don't remember doing that, but you are. So at home I feel like your productivity is impacted, and that does create a lot of stress. And that's just for us students. There are a lot of people out there, like we were speaking about the doctors. They are like going, like Arnav said, up and beyond, and they're just doing everything they possibly can, and the stigma against them is also impacting them mentally, like not being able to meet your family, or being avoided because you think they have the virus. And for us as students and people as working professionals, our home life and like personal life and our academic slash work life have just merged into one. And not only is there this professional stress, there are also some people, like we were talking about, who had this uncertainty about the employment at that time. During the initial stages of lockdown, there was a spike in the rate of unemployment. All of this, this does not only have an increase in stress and anxiety now, it can cause a lot of different long-term effects like PTSD and OCD and stuff. The whole pandemic has made us very paranoid, I can say, about washing our hands and keeping everything clean. There's been a rise in germophobia. Terms like corona anxiety and corona phobia have been coined. And I remember we had a discussion in psychology class about how this pandemic has affected us. And I actually read up a study that was done by Hong Kong University, and they said the stress levels for teenagers are so high right now, it could be that of a working professional in their 30s. They were university students, and that's their stress level right now. That's how much this pandemic has impacted all of us. It's impacted us unbiased. But then again, even if we're being impacted, I think we can cope with it because humans adapt to like anything. So I think if we just take care of our physical health and mental health go hand in hand. If we eat well, sleep well, exercise well, and very importantly, be self aware. We might not realize the impact of the pandemic, but being self aware would be very important. Reaching out for help. A lot of psychologists and counselors are conducting online sessions. We can use that to help ourselves. Self care is extremely important. I think the most important thing right now is to treat everyone with kindness and be supportive, because we don't know what battles everyone is facing right now.
Thank you, Navya. Sham, would you like to add your views on this?
Yes, well, since the lockdown started, I initially for the 12th grade, I had planned a series of exams, and it would be in intervals of months where I can study. But since the lockdown happened, it's now all cramped to the end, and I have to study a lot more, and this is causing a lot of stress. Other than that, I have to stay at home for such a long time. My fitness is reduced, and I feel a bit down at times. And while I have not gone through this extremity, I'm sure many been have felt depressed at certain times. So Navya, my question to you is that I feel being happy is very important for a person. How can we get back to the jovial state that we were in before lockdown and not let this sadness completely take over us?
I think being happy, Sham, is highly in your own hands. It could be any situation, but being happy just depends on you and how you see the situation. Like, I think we are extremely fortunate that we still have all the facilities we need. And I think that should be our reason for happiness at this point, because there are a lot of people out there who don't have what we have right now. We are still able to communicate through, calls and have discussions and, have our classes, and we have enough food and we have a roof over our head. And I think that should be the main thing that's giving us hope and happiness during these dark times.
Thank you, Navya. Also, to add on to you, so you mentioned, Sham, you mentioned trying to go back to our earlier jovial self. So maybe that's not necessary. We've all heard this new term people are talking about these days, the new normal. So I think during these times, we can all just try to find those things that make us happy and find some new way to make it happen. So if maybe meeting up with your friends makes you happy, try for some video calls, or maybe even go meet them by, of course, taking proper precautions. So I guess that's all we have to do. We just try to deal with the situation best we can, and take some time out for yourself and do the things that make you happy. Ornav, do you have something to add to?
Okay. Yeah. So I really feel that this situation is more of a you don't know what you've got until it's gone kind of thing. Because until the pandemic started, until the lockdown started, anytime any of us wanted to make a plan or go out to meet, it used to always be there would always be one or two people who'd be like, you know what, not now, maybe next time, I'm a bit busy today, I have to go out somewhere else today. Always like that. But once this pandemic has started, everybody has realized that we might not ever get a chance to go out like that again. Like as you were talking about, Keitna, the new normal, like we might not have a chance to meet in groups, so the video calls are the new normal. So yeah, people, some of my friends and I, we still get together and video calls, like maybe gaming sessions, etc. But that feeling of meeting up with someone and like going out with them, maybe for lunch, bowling, for a movie, something like that, you don't know that happiness until it's gone. So yeah, that's
Thank you, Ornav. So when I get bored these days, especially, I just end up picking up my phone and scrolling aimlessly to social media, especially Instagram. And I'm sure many of you do the same. In these times, social media usage overall has increased a lot. So, Sumangla, how has social media affected you in this situation?
Like Navya had earlier mentioned that the productivity levels have gone down. So I think most of our time, most of our free time, we just spend it on our phones, either watching random YouTube videos or memes or trolls or anything. I think for me, I'd say that social media is like my guilty pleasure. Even though I try not to spend most of my time on it, I end up doing it. So, but then it does have various useful, like when you dig deeper, when, like you said, I was just scrolling randomly and I found this podcast, which I was talking about earlier. And then there were various weird cooking hacks, which I tried, some of them which actually worked. And, but then to the negative side, we're all different. We don't know who's going to take offense to what. You know, a small joke can be offensive to a minority or measure anyone. So because we don't know how the other person is going to react, I think the social media usage has to be a little more sensitive. Like say, just for one laugh or a giggle, I just in one share I send a troll or a meme to my friend. Unintentionally, I become a part of the circle, which I don't want to. But you know, just for the sake of a fun, or you know, just for having a moment, we tend to become a part of that circle. So I think if you're more sensitive and sensible, especially during these times, yeah, right. Like Navya said that we all need to, you know, have fun and you know be more positive. But I think it shouldn't be in the cost of you know hurting others. So I think if we're more sensible and sensitive while using this platform, we can still have fun.
Navya, would you like to add something onto this?
Yes, Kirtana, like Sumangla mentioned some very important things right now, that we need to be sensitive during these times, and social media usage has increased. You know, everyone's online all the time, and there's more circulation of fake news. I think during this time in the pandemic, that is one thing that we need to stay away from, because some people are calling this entire pandemic a hoax, and some people are spreading rumors about, you know, the death rates or stuff like that. So I think that's very important for us to choose wisely what we decide to read and what we decide to indulge in. But I think one more very important thing that social media has been instrumental in is getting the donations and resources to people who are in dire need of it. Being students, we don't have that much of a reach to get help, but through social media, I feel that all of us, wherever we are, we're able to make some sort of change and some sort of help. So I think it's very important that we acknowledge the boon that social media has been in this time for all of us.
Thank you, Navya. Ornab, would you like to share your views?
Yeah, Kirtana. So, like Navya was talking about fake news. So, fake news has been really, really confusing a bit, in these trying times. There are many people among my friend circle and family circle who've received messages from supposed government organizations, from supposedly from WHO, which has absolutely unbelievable information, and it's stuff that is fake. I mean, it's not really easy to trust it, but yet when you've received it from your family member or from a friend, you know that like there is something inside you that you're like, wait, is there a chance that it's true? And furthermore, there's another thing that like Navya was talking about with the donations, and that's a really big thing. There have been quite a few of my friends who started these Instagram charity groups, and through that they've been receiving donations in order to give to homeless stray dogs who've not been getting food, so in order to feed them. Then people who are homeless people, in order to give them blankets and shelter. And yeah, and I myself helped in a fundraising drive during the recent cyclone. But another really important and kind of sad thing that social media does is, and I'm sure you've all heard of it, FOMO, fear of missing out. Now, yeah, I know there's not a lot we can miss out on in these times, but there are still some of our friends who go out and meet with others and post those pictures on social media. Now, while you know that this isn't safe, you shouldn't be doing this, but you still have that feeling inside you that I want to go out too, because all of us feel cramped inside the house. We all want to go out. And when you see some of your friends outside, you get FOMO. You want to be like, I want to be with them. So yeah, social media is both a boon and a bane as always, and more evidently now.
Thank you, Ornab. Sham, would you like to add something?
Yes, I would like to pose a question to the panel. Many speculations have surfaced, but many of them are close to home for us students, that the exams may be postponed, we may enter another lockdown. How do you think this has subconsciously affected you?
So is that a question just to Navya or to all of us?
It's an open question to the panel.
Could you repeat the question? How do we think?
These speculations have maybe subconsciously affected you. For example, if you think the exams are going to be postponed, do you slack in your studies?
So overall, for me, what I usually do is try not to think about all these changes that are happening and to focus on day to day or week to week what to do. So then I try not to change my plans. Like I try to pretend that the exam will happen at the usual time that it will, and to be prepared for that, because we never know when they're going to just change it all of a sudden. We okay, no, we're not postponing it, and then we're bringing it back to the regular time. So I think, yeah, subconsciously it makes you feel like, oh, wait, we have a lot of time. But then I think consciously we can try not to think like that and to just focus on our day to day work and not worry too much about the future.
Yeah, Sham, like Kirtana said, so during the beginning of the pandemic, all these speculations and doubts that people had, like all of these, you might have been a little like concerned about it, like something you read in the paper or something, maybe some message somebody sends you that the exams are getting postponed, exams are getting canceled. So it might have been concerning to us at that time. But now, after like so many months of lockdown and the pandemic has gone on, and we've seen how things have been changing, all these speculations are like not something we give a lot of importance to, because that's just what they are, speculations. And we've seen how quickly things have changed. On one day, there has been something that has been implemented, and just 2 3 days later, that has had to be changed. So you kind of accept them as speculations after a point of time and just go ahead with your work. yeah, there is obviously that lackadaisical feeling that we all have because we've been at home for so long, and like Navya mentioned so many times that sitting at home, productivity has gone down, and we're really lackadaisical. And and there are speculations that the board exams might be postponed. Now, again, those are speculations, but to a lot of us, to some of us that's something to be relaxed about, but to others that might be something that's not as relaxing because it might come really close to a lot of our other entrance exams for college and all that. So yeah, it's really a double-edged blade.
For me, I'd say, like Keetana had mentioned earlier, that she kind of knows that these are just speculations. So I try to mostly ignore them. Like, we're all annoyed by the annoying WhatsApp forwards we get from our relatives, and questions that, oh, your boards are going to get cancelled, oh, are they next month? And you're like, wait, I don't know myself, let's see. So I think I mostly try to ignore them. But I think it's good that you set it in your mind that it is going to happen. When you don't, I think you tend to, like, have this laid back attitude that when it comes, we'll do our work. So that's one. And another one is that we don't necessarily have to, because we have the, I wouldn't say experience, but because we're the majority who's using social media, we kind of know what's true and what's not true. And because the world is changing so fast, like the other day, we saw such a huge reduction in our portions out of nowhere, and now there's still some discussion whether they're going to reduce it by 50%. Are they going to take out few chapters? So that there's going to be a lot of changes. So I think I'm mentally prepared that it will keep changing. So let's just focus on one main goal, even though we don't know when it's going to happen, but we know it'll happen. So I think if you have that in mind, it's fine.
Yeah, for me also, I think I'm not going to lie. Initially, during the lockdown, there were so many different rumors, and I wanted to believe all of them, that the boards are going to get postponed, there's going to be a 50% reduction in syllabus. I was excited for it, to be honest. But then I just kind of realized as, like, the lockdown progressed, that there's just so much going on, but none of this has been true till now. There's literally no substance to any of these rumors. So like Kirtana and Sumangla mentioned, it's just you have to be mentally prepared. I've become like mentally prepared. Okay, this is going to happen, and I'm going to study for whatever situation comes, even if it happens in the normal time, even if it's postponed, I'll be ready. Like Arnab said, by the end of the lockdown, like by this time, I'm just like, okay, just say what you want, I'm not going to believe it anymore until I have like an official clarification. And your parents keep asking you, do you have any idea of when your exams are going to happen, what about your practicals? I'm like, I don't know. Don't ask me again and again, it's just stressing me out. So when you just keep focusing on these rumors, you're just going to get more stressed. So I think just all of us, at least me, like all of us said, we need to be mentally prepared for whatever happens. Just study the way thinking it's going to happen, so be ready for whatever happens.
Thank you, Navya. Another thing I'd like to add on this topic. So, all of you mentioned the confusion that fake news brings about, but honestly, these days, even the real news is confusing enough. The WHO guidelines are almost changing weekly. One day they say 5 feet is enough, then 6 feet, and then 10 feet. So, I mean, honestly, we don't even know what is right. And honestly, even they don't know what's right. So, I think overall, just like I mentioned before, just take care of the present and the future will take care of itself. Okay, so now that we've talked about all the problems and negatives, let's conclude with something uplifting. Sumangla, what do you envision for the future after this situation?
I think for me, acceptance is key, be it in any medium or any situation. So now that we're all starting to accept that this is what is happening, this is how it's going to be. I think you can when you accept things, it becomes much more easier to deal with it. So one is acceptance, and the other thing is be grateful and hope for the best. Now that I have internet connection, I have access to education. Not everyone has that, so I think be grateful for what you have and make the best use out of it. So I think what I envision for the future is a much more positive one, with sensible and sensitive human beings coming out of it. So we're all in this together. So I think we have learned something out of this, be it sensitivity, hope, positivity, anything. I think we'll come out much stronger and much positive.
Thank you, Sumangla. Sham, how about you?
Yes, the humankind has been through a lot. We have survived so many different situations, and this is just another one. Human resilience will come through, in my opinion. I think it's very important that instead of just what do you say, harping on this fact that we will get through it, we have to take the learnings to make a better future. We have to realize the importance of personal hygiene and give importance to those whom we had not thought of before, like our friends. Just not meeting them can be so sad, but we should take this as a learning, and if we do so, we'll have a much more brighter and positive future.
Thank you, Shan. Orna, would you like to add your views on this?
So yeah, like Sham said, mankind has been through a lot. Like this isn't the first time there has been a pandemic that has swept through the globe. Like there has been the Black Death before this, and we have moved beyond that. So the only place we can go now is up. Positivity is the only way forward. I think that once this disease dies down or once it's going down, it gives us a chance to look into ourselves and think what we've been doing right, what we've been doing wrong. It gives a moment of renaissance for us to for like all of us to come together and start working together instead of working against each other. And like and maybe we can all come together and start preventing further calamities or pandemics like this, because now we'll all be prepared if we all start sticking together and working together. So yeah, I feel the only way forward, and the way forward that I think people are starting to understand now, is unity, sticking together.
Thank you, Orna. Navya, how about you?
I think I concur with everyone's views here. Embracing change is very important for us, and we have been doing that as humans. We've embraced various different changes in our life, and like Sumangla said, accepting the situation is very important, that this is how it is. And learning from this pandemic, like Arnab and Sham said, hygiene and unity, I think, is extremely important, and realizing that we need to be kinder, we need to be more supportive of one another, and I think if we stick together, we can get through anything.
Thank you, Navya. So, yeah, like Sham mentioned, humanity has survived many horrible, seemingly unsurvivable situations, and we've somehow made it through all of those. There's been wars and famines and earthquakes, and I can go on, but you know what I'm talking about. Even now, most people are following the guidelines, behaving aptly, and being kind. Some are even going out of their way to help people. So, in these daunting times, I think we could all be a little bit more compassionate, responsible, and hopeful that it'll all turn out okay. Fingers crossed that the vaccine will come out soon. Thank you and have a nice day.